Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Cheap Seats. It's your Premier League podcast where we talk all things happening in the Premier League. Um, linesmen, elbow checking, left backs who have a very big mouth and can't defend. And we've watched Manchester City give us postage stamp and beautiful highlights that are going to be probably denigrated by 12-year-olds in 10 years time who tell you that Erling Haaland wasn't the greatest striker we've ever seen in the year of our Lord 2023. And then you also got issues around whether Vidic and Virgil van Dijk and who's better, which is fun. It's a fun little argument. But most importantly, there was a momentum shift in the title race for Dean, who's smiling today. Arsenal, obviously, I don't know if it's 1 point gained or 2 points lost, but we're going to talk about that. Drawing to Liverpool at Anfield. I know why he thought Liverpool was going to win, and everyone else thought Arsenal were going to drop points. And
I
I
think
was
Liverpool should
hoping
have won based on their performance in the second
Liverpool
half.
should have won.
Yes, and thank the Lord for Aaron Ramsdale. Look, I don't give him plaudits much. I always thought he wasn't. I was worried by that signing, but yeah, it's worth the money. It's worth the money. But anyway, we've got John Emil here as well. We've got Dean and Wahid, so we're going to be talking about all of that. Let's start with that recap of that game. Is it a point gained or a point lost? I'm going to give you guys my thing, and you guys can tell me what you thought. That first half was irritating, but anyway, it feel when I walked away, it was like 2 points lost. But as the day as Monday came through, I was like, actually, no, we actually gained a point because somehow Manchester City and Manchester United couldn't get it done in Anfield, and the only team that managed to get it done was Brighton, which is a little bit weird. But yeah, it was. It you kind of felt like at this point in the season, this you had them on a platter, and Arsenal just couldn't put them away. And there's this weird stat that if a team wins at Anfield, I think in the last 15 years, in between February and April, they are actually will go on to become champions. So it was a massive miss for Arsenal, but man, that Liverpool team, that second half was just wild. But anyway, I'll go to Jean Emile because you were on the other side of that game. And the other question, how did you experience that game?
That game was basically our season contained into 90 minutes, where the first 45 was the most atrocious football I've ever seen. But I mean, credit to Arsenal. You guys were sensational. Absolutely controlled everything. The passing was just so confident, especially with Odegaard and Xhaka in the middle, Thomas Partey as well. And just that front three, honestly, could rival Mane, Firmino, Salah in the very near future. Martinelli, Saka, and Gabriel Jesus, their movement, they just knew exactly what to do. And all of a sudden, 44 minutes in, we got the rub of the green just in terms of that. I mean, like there was no way we deserved that goal. And then we got angry and everything changed. We got severely angry. And that second 45 was the best football I've seen us play the entire season. Way better than when we beat United 7-0, way better than when we beat Brighton 9-0.
Serious?
Bournemouth, sorry. Far better.
It was better than 7-0.
Far better.
They weren't 7-0 better than us in that game. They were
just terrible.
So we took 8 shots.
We were bad. But if you look at XG from the United game, Liverpool should have won 2 or 3-1. And XG from this game, Liverpool should have put 5 past Arsenal based on the performance level. So they were much better than that 7-0 game against us. Also, it wasn't a 7-0 game. Like I think United were a lot worse against Newcastle than we were against Liverpool, but that's another chat completely. But Liverpool were unbelievable in this game.
They had the best XG across all of Europe's top 5 leagues this weekend, Liverpool. So I mean, that just says something. And it also kind of indicates that the team is not like that far off if we get our summer window correct. Just literally 2 very good signings and that gap is closed. I do stake my reputation on it, but it was just so refreshing and relieving to see a high quality game of football. Sorry,
Dean. When you must have been happy, right?
Well, I was depressed, and then I was very happy.
Yeah. That Arsenal performance, that result, was it a point lost or 2 points lost or a point gained for Arsenal? Especially after the stats that Jean Emile just gave us.
I think for me, it's 100% a point gain, because even if you have a look at the two first halves, and even if you have to separate them, right? Arsenal weren't doing to Liverpool in the first half what Liverpool were doing to Arsenal in the second half. Like, Liverpool were literally non-stop running rampant. And yeah, like you said, without Aaron Ramsdale, I think it would have been a Liverpool win. I mean, Salah's missed penalty. They need to get a penalty taker. Hopefully that's someone that they sign in the summer.
I had a problem with that penalty.
I don't think it's a penalty anyway, but that's another discussion. But I do think from an Arsenal perspective, they'll walk away from that game a little bit more sort of rattled rather than gaining confidence that they managed to walk away with Anfield with a draw, because they went from controlling the game to nowhere near even being able to compete in that game. So for Arsenal fans, I was with an Arsenal and a Liverpool fan watching the game, and those emotions were just everywhere, from highs to lows to everywhere. So from an Arsenal perspective, I think it's put more doubt now that they can actually get it done on the run in. And I think it's exactly what City needed to see Arsenal do, because they've now got a bit of a, I don't want to say a blueprint, but you can now see how to beat Arsenal if you just do what Liverpool do or did on the weekend against them. So
City went to Anfield and lost this season.
Fair.
Arsenal's the only team to take a point, apart from Brighton, but we know what Brighton can do. And surely you lean on that. And that's what I was looking with Mikel Arteta. What irritated me on Sunday was that substitution where he took Odegaard off and he brought on the centre-back and he went to that 5-2-3 formation. Because I understand you're under pressure, you're under the cosh, but dude, it was like you're pushing this defense even deeper and deeper, and you're bound to concede.
And even when they got pushed back, right? You look at some of those counter-attacks, and I think that if you guys lose the title,
last one,
Martinelli pass to Saka will go down as the Gerrard slip. Like that is a pass you just make all day, every day, and not being able to do that, then walk away with 3 points probably. That's something that could swing this title. So it would be really, really interesting. I mean, obviously we won't know, and it's all just kind of ifs, buts, and maybes. But yeah, I would be more worried as an Arsenal fan now than I was before this game, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, let me go to Wahid, then we'll do our cheap classic shirts, because we forgot about our partners, but they're up in the corner where Jean Emile is. Wahid, when you looked at that game, should Arsenal be happy with that point?
I think in the context of the season, no, but in the context of the game, yes. I think in the context of the season, if you 2-0 up at half, 2-1 up, if you 2-0 up at all, or 2-1 up at half time, and you want to win a league, you got to be turning that into 3 points. You can't be dropping points from that position if you want to be considered champions, especially with the run in and the fact that Arsenal still have to go to the Etihad. I think that once Arsenal got 2-0 up, that should have been champions would have closed that game out. Champions would have slowed it down. Champions would have absorbed the pressure and would have nullified the crowd. They would have done silly little things to take the pace out of the game and take the edge out of Liverpool. Liverpool were playing Jurgen Klopp's brand of heavy metal football in that second half, and you needed to stop that. You needed to get under their skins one way or the next. And I felt like Arsenal were too nice in that second half, and they wanted to do things their own way, but what they really needed to do was do things the hard way and stop Liverpool. And I felt like that was where the game went. What they should have been doing is just game management, season management, title management. And that's why I think it's probably 2 points lost rather than a point gained. And I think in the context of the season, that's going to be really damaging to Arsenal's title hopes. So if that were United, I'd be splitting mad because I felt like Arsenal were too soft. And that's not something that I'd want levied against my team, is being soft. And if you're going to come back at the end of the season and City are holding the trophy, you're probably going to look at that half and think, we could have been better. We could have been stronger. We could have been harder in closing that game out.
This is very reminiscent of that 4-4 Anfield draw in the 08-09 season.
I brought that up in our last podcast, in saying that everyone talks about us going to the Etihad and Vincent Kompany scoring and winning the league, but it wasn't there that we lost the league. It was that 4-4 game, that second half against Everton, where we thought we were cruising. And we ended up losing the league from that position. And I think this was reminiscent of that, just soft and lack of game management.
Yeah, no, it's I get that soft point. And this entire season, I've been trying to get this team to kind of kill it because they play pretty football. They run through teams. And then you have moments. The Everton game where I think we drew with them. It was ridiculous. And they just too tough on you, even Newcastle. And that's why I'm worried about Newcastle away, because if we're struggling to come out of Anfield when you're 2-0 up, Newcastle play a different brand of football on Tyneside and at home, which is what he found.
The problem with Newcastle playing Arsenal is that Arsenal want to play pretty stuff, and Newcastle don't want to play football. Newcastle are to football what the Springboks are to rugby. They tactical. They don't play much football. The same way the Springboks don't necessarily play that much rugby a lot of the time. Newcastle don't play much football, and they keep. And I think that might be where Arsenal come undone against a team who don't actually want to play.
Yeah, and that's why I'm looking at it in the season. But before we move on to Jean giving us a soliloquy about this Liverpool season. Remember, this show is sponsored by Classic Shirts. We forgot about that at the start, but anyway, we're coming back in here. A little bit of an ad break. The kit of the week. I decided to bring some Arsenal good vibes. So I went back to the last time Arsenal won a double. We're not going to win a double.
We're just going to do Arsenal every week, dude.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're just going to do Arsenal every single week. Come on.
We did it. Last week we did Chelsea. And the week before we did, what was it? Liverpool. But yeah, I love this one. I think it's so good. So you can check it out at Classic Shirts today. Cheap seats 99. Put Ian right there because poor man was going through the ringer, just like the rest of us. We're just going through a lot, and and Paul Merson's in the photo as well. So yeah, if you are 12 years old and want to remind yourself of a time when you weren't born, you can go buy it instead of doing videos of Vidic fails on YouTube. But really, really good shirt here. I really love it. I really do hope we do a version of the Adidas does a version of this soon, because I like the shirt. But remember, discount code cheap seats 99. And if you're a City fan, you can go there and get whatever kits you want to do to kind of validate your fandom, because supposedly City doesn't have fans and Arsenal fans are too loud, and that's why people want City to win the title, which is another story in itself. Let's move on to the next topic. Jean, I don't know what I saw in that second half, because I was like, this isn't the Liverpool other teams were getting. But what Liverpool was that? How frustrating was that second half for you? Because if they can reach these heights, why couldn't they do that regularly throughout the season? And I know there were injuries and everything else, but is the heavy metal football just wearing out and it's only to be used in big games?
It's much easier for the players to get themselves psyched up in the big games, but that's the trick that Klopp has to do, because his management hasn't been great this season. Quite honestly, as bad as everything has been in terms of injuries, and there have been huge players missing for very important periods of time, Klopp's tactics have been bewildering, to say the least, for a lot of the season as well. So there's improvement to be made across the board, but that anger has been missing completely. And I almost feel like the moment Xhaka squared up to Alexander-Arnold was kind of the moment where Arsenal lost their 3 points. Strangely enough, because that's the kind of anger you were talking about that Arsenal kind of needed.
Yes.
But it backfired in a way.
But it's at the wrong place.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time, and wrong player, might I say.
No, but even if it was Saka or anybody else, you just needed one moment to kind of, and that's what I think after the Xhaka moment, Arsenal went into their shell thinking that if we can somehow not engage them again, that it won't, it won't
personality
go
needs to be
snowball.
strong enough to dial out that noise from the crowd. So if you're going to go face to face with a Liverpool player, your personality needs to be strong enough to shut out that crowd completely. So the likes of Roy Keane have done that before, where the crowd means absolutely little to them, and they'll keep going hard at Liverpool, but you need to be strong enough and confident enough to go do that at Anfield.
Didier Drogba, Frank Lampard, Roy Keane, those are the big mental players where they'd seen it, they'd done it, and they could go to Anfield and silence a crowd. Honestly, I mean, our Anfield form has been good. So to actually come there and try and do that, you really are trying a lot. But then you're just facing off against a really angry team who is pissed off with having lost their mentality the whole season. And I must say, this game gave me a lot more hope than any other game previously, because it's a game where we showed that we can come back rather than just steamrolling a team, because that won't teach us anything. It's the resolve to actually recover that really shows you the character might not be lost after all.
How important is a player like Roberto Firmino on your side?
Oh man, he is irreplaceable to any team that would ever have the luck to have him in, because he's the only player I've ever known to have mastered a position like he has. Honestly, I just don't think any person comes close. But that being said, he's unfortunately lost his yard of pace or fitness to basically maintain that level that he was at 3 years ago. So it's the right time for him to move on. But I really, really just hope that he can teach the next generation, especially Gakpo, to play that position in the years to come.
And Trent, and I'm going to get the guys to come in here. Trent had the weirdest game, but as always, because obviously started out right, and first few minutes, that first chance that Martinelli had went by him, and then you're like, okay, no, like there's no way. Joe Gomez is on the bench, guys. Like, let's do it. But then obviously the goals went in, but they came out of the left actually, because I think an unpopular position is Andy Robertson. I'm not so sure, guys. I think he's lost a yard of pace, and it's becoming a little bit more evident. But Trent coming inside into that little inverted fullback role, I thought he should be playing in the midfield. But what do you make of him? And do you think that match was a vindication, or that second half and that assist was a vindication to all the naysayers?
Who are you asking?
Jean. Yes,
me.
I'm with you.
Oh man, this is going to be the question on all England fans' lips in the years to come, because I just want to say, like, if you can imagine a potential midfield of Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, suddenly, like, that actually seems really impressive. I mean, you're like, wow. The creativity, the energy, the running, the tackling, everything it's almost like a perfect midfield. If you could get Trent to play a midfield role to his capability that he was doing in the under 18s, you could have a Kevin De Bruyne Mark II. All that being said, the decision to invert the fullback by Klopp in this Arsenal game was a masterstroke, and that could be a completely new, unique position in and of itself. So I'm very, very interested to see where this goes from here. in terms of the developments of Trent's position, because it certainly won't be the last time that we see that. And his defensive frailties have just not improved.
There's two things to consider there, though, because if you do use him in the midfield, that's going to be Jurgen Klopp having to go back on his on something he said previously, because Gareth Southgate once played him in a game in midfield and he did awfully in that game. But Klopp in a press conference a couple of weeks later said he didn't understand why you would play the best right back in the world in midfield. So I don't think that Klopp sees Trent as a midfielder, and I think he still sees Trent as a fullback or wingback. And I'm not so sure that Klopp is going to have it in him to go and switch that position. If he does, I'll be quite impressed, because I do think that Trent is a midfielder. I don't think that Trent is a fullback. If he goes along the lines of playing with an inverted fullback, where Trent is allowed to come infield into that Kevin De Bruyne right-sided midfield channel role during Liverpool's attack, it sort of leads to the question of, so who covers that channel on defense? And usually you'd need a really hard-working right winger to cover that channel, which Mo Salah isn't.
Or a really speedy centre-back.
Or a speedy centre-back. However,
Konate didn't put a foot wrong in that second half.
It was amazing.
Who? Van Dijk. Yeah, but Van Dijk isn't the fastest at the moment, is he?
No, Konate. He was on the right. Van Dijk was on the left, yeah.
But the dynamic might shift along the lines of Salah not being hard-working enough to play that fullback, that inverted fullback, on a regular basis. So you've got a double-edged sword of, does Klopp move Trent to midfield, or does he let him play the inverted role and make Salah work harder, which might take some aspects away from Salah's game if you're trying to make him work harder?
In this particular game, that's why Jordan Henderson actually found himself quite a lot on the right-hand side. And I think he was covering.
Salah moved quite a lot infield, which pushed Darwin out to the left. It was very interesting to watch it all unfold. Darwin out on the left is baffling, because he's a baffling footballer. He sometimes doesn't look like he has control over his own limbs, but somehow he makes it happen.
Yeah, well, look, Erling Haaland has control of all of his limbs. Dean, Trent obviously is polarizing, but it's midfield. It has to be midfield. Like, I looked at that Jordan Henderson role and I was like, no, that's where Trent should be. Trent should be assisting the right back on the right side of the midfield rather than being the right back. But it worked for them in that second half. But what did you make of that second half performance for him? Because obviously he even assisted.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was difficult to do worse, to be honest, than what he did in that first half. I mean, that first goal that Arsenal scored was under 14 C team level football. Pass it down the wing and cross it in, and someone heads it in. You know, it wasn't difficult. So, I mean, there's no doubting Trent's ability to deliver up front, and everyone is well aware of sort of his shortcomings at the back. But
oh my word,
if this is the kind of role that would suit him, I don't think they could play it every game, like we've said. But the one thing that I was also sitting while watching that game of, if you know that you're playing against a team that's got a strong left winger like Martinelli, you know, you then just double up on that right-hand side. And I was even saying, throw someone on like James Milner, who can cover that right-hand side with Trent. You take them out of the midfield, fine, but then you're covering one of your weaker spots. It's obviously going to sort of weaken your midfield. But I do think that there's a lot more to come from this Liverpool team. I think the game also changed quite significantly when Thiago came on. You could see that sort of plan in that middle of the park, that sort of keeping it ticking over and being able to find the pass, alleviate the pressure on the back when it was, and kind of go through. So from a midfield perspective, I don't think there's, and as Jean said, I think midfield is the only place they should focus on in the upcoming window, probably to strengthen. They have enough tools to get them by for the rest of the season, probably, but there's probably still more that can be done in that midfield with the likes of Thiago coming back. So it's going to be really interesting to see sort of how Liverpool navigate that the next couple games. And I think after the performance on Sunday, I don't think top four is then out of their mind. I do think that they will take a lot of confidence from this and say, well, if Brighton are handballing / not handballing in the boxes like they did at Tottenham,
we still need to talk about you.
they could slip. Spurs are obviously going to slip. Newcastle, they haven't been there before, so I think Liverpool have got a target, obviously, and it's obviously early days. It's one game, but there's a lot of confidence they can draw out, and a lot of players that can draw confidence from their performance.
Let's talk about Liverpool quickly. Where do you see yourselves finishing, Jean?
Yeah,
6th.
And that gives you
That's Spurs spot, John. Don't take Spurs spots.
No, 6th.
Away from.
I think just looking at the run-in of fixtures and Newcastle and Spurs, the fact is they're just finding that way to win. I can't say that they're playing particularly well. I mean, Spurs really, that
need
lost
the rev
to Wolves
to help them win.
Yeah. Admittedly, Howard Webb apologizing to Brighton afterwards.
I feel rocks about that. To be honest, as a Spurs fan, I'm like, yo, cool, bro. It's about time we get a call.
3 points.
So, Jean, sorry, if you finish 6th, what are you hoping for? You're hoping for United to win the Europa League so that you get the Europa League spot.
I'm done looking at other teams. I just want my own team to do well in the future.
No, so you talk. No, I'm asking this because you're talking about getting Bellingham, and I'm not sure Jude Bellingham is going to go to a team playing in the Conference League. So at very minimum, you'll need the Europa League, but 6th isn't going to get you that. So what are you then hoping for? You're hoping for 6th and someone else to do you a favor to get you into the Europa League. So either for
City
Chelsea to go win the Champions League or United to win the Europa League. Is Arsenal still in the Europa League?
No.
You're not. Yeah. So it's United to win the Europa League, or City or Chelsea to win the Champions League, which opens 6th.
Or win the FA Cup. Because the FA Cup winner gets a spot in the Europa League. It's not Conference.
So then United would have to win the United or City would have to go and win, which is probably how it unfolds. So 6 probably gets Europa League anyway.
Well, I won't talk too much on Bellingham, but from my understanding, just having followed this transfer saga literally since it first emerged, his family is leaning towards a move back to England, which would mean a race between Liverpool and Man City. And I think then it's just a case of we can't compete with Man City, whether we are in the Champions League or not, in terms of finances. So then it just comes down to whether Jude Bellingham, as a 19-year-old, believes that this is a long-term project and basically European football for one season away doesn't really matter. It's much more in the long term and being able to learn and progress under Jurgen Klopp. So if he comes, and I'm not going to get too heart sore about it either way, but apparently he is about to make a decision in the next week.
Oh, interesting week. Does Klopp have it in him to get this team up for that? Because you're saying 6th, right? So that means that Klopp's not going to be able to get these guys to try. And
no, they'll try.
Top 4.
They'll certainly try. It's just our fixtures are tough, or there's just going to be moments. Literally, it's going to be decided on 1 or 2 goals, and Newcastle and Spurs are just going to get the edge. I believe that we'll massively improve until the end of the season, but it just won't be enough. Currently, we're 8th. Okay. We will raise.
You're on 44 and 4th United on 56, and that's a hell of a bridge to gap.
It's a large gap.
Yeah. Massive. So
okay.
What is Liverpool's run-in actually? Like, what's the toughest game?
Well, the toughest game is anyone in the bottom half of the Premier League. Leeds, Forest, West Ham, Spurs, Fulham, Brentford,
I just see Owls,
Villa, and Southampton.
Yeah, okay. They're gonna come up for the Tottenham game. So sorry, Dean. But everyone else like free easy.
We've beaten one team away in the bottom half of the Premier League this season. Aston Villa.
And who was that?
Aston Villa. Oh no, wait, they're not in the bottom half anymore.
No.
So we haven't beaten any team.
Have you beaten Chelsea? Because that would count.
We haven't beaten Chelsea.
No, they drew 0-0.
We should have.
Yeah, we should have. Yeah. So we haven't beaten any team away in the bottom half of the league.
Okay.
That is a ridiculous stat.
Yeah, he's making me feel bad. Okay, one final thing before we go off. This title race just obviously flipped the switch after that draw. City are now odds-on favorites from the bookies to win the title. There obviously is that game between Arsenal and City on the 26th. And that's probably gonna, if Arsenal come out with a draw there, I would be so happy. But anyway, there's many opportunities for both teams to lose points along the way. City's gonna have a lot of games in hands, and it could possibly be that by the time Arsenal play City, Arsenal will have a 9-point lead on that 26. So it could, psychologically could have problems for City. But last year, City in the run-in the last 10 games only drew 3 games. The season before, they lost 3 games. So I think that was the Liverpool one. It was close. And then in 2019-20, they lost twice. In 18-19, they didn't lose any in the last 10, which I think Jean must have cried.
To add to this, no team has ever gone 9 for 9 in the run-in. No team has ever done that.
18-19 City?
No,
they went 10 for 10.
They did.
They go 9 for 9.
It wasn't
9.
10.
Take that Manchester bias away from you. This is a real show that we do. We talk about facts.
What are the odds of okay, obviously you look at Arsenal and you're like, okay, fine, they've had their blip, they'll still have many more. But the way City are playing this season, or the way they're playing right now, do you see them dropping points?
I do.
Yes.
I think they will.
Yes, John. We're gonna go with John.
Yes, 100%.
They got new manager bounce this week. Old Dean Smith.
Yes, Leicester. With Dean Smith. So hopefully something's gonna come out of there. But that Arsenal. So for Arsenal to get back in, do they? So I guess they'll have to beat City at the Etihad to kind of take it through. And Jean says no. What do they have to do, or is it over?
Get a point. They mustn't lose.
Yes.
And they mustn't lose to Newcastle.
And we've got Chelsea with Super Frank.
They must beat Chelsea.
You see, this is the thing. I think City's got an easier run in.
Right? Yes, they do.
I think that's clear as day. It's now more a case of Arsenal have had their slip, if you want to call it that.
It's now a case of how hard can Dean pray.
I tell you what, I'm going to buy a City shirt pretty much soon. That's how much I'm supporting every other
Dean
team.
is Muslim. He is Jewish. It's all in our holiday period. Dean is praying to everyone at the moment.
I'm going to start observing Ramadan soon. I promise you, if City can win this game. But I think City. The biggest thing for me is if City whitewash Arsenal on the 26th of April, I think momentum switches to City. I think that points wise they'll be there, but then psychologically, I think that is where City take over Arsenal. So for me, it all comes down to that game. That game is the final of the season for me.
So my only thing with this is if City win this league this season with that cyborg who scored 30 goals in the Premier League and can do overhead kicks forever, what chance does any team have in the next coming seasons to beat them? Because statistically, outside of the one Liverpool season where you guys got 97 points and still lost, this is still a very good title fight that Arsenal's putting up. Like, how do you then end up beating them?
We also got 92 and then lost when they got 93.
Yeah.
That same question could have been leveled at Fergie's United, because I think that Fergie's United at one point were goal difference and 1 point away from winning 6 in a row or something along those lines. So it always seems insurmountable, but teams go through peaks and troughs, and I can't imagine this goes on forever with City the way they are. They need to recruit extremely well to maintain this forever, which I suppose they do, but they will have players who start aging, and they'll need to replace those players and integrate new players into the squad. For example, I look at Erling Haaland, and I know he's a cyborg and he scored an insane amount of goals, but I do personally feel City look better when Alvarez is playing as compared to when Haaland is playing. As a unit, they look better. So it's certain things that they'll have to adjust to going forward, and tweak their squad. And I don't think it will go on forever. I think they're going to win the league this year, so I think they're going to become the first team to three-peat it apart from us. We've three-peated it 3 times, so they'll still have to have a way to go to match what we've done. But I don't think it's insurmountable, and I think teams like Arsenal will get better. I think Liverpool will be much better next season. I think United will develop under Erik ten Hag, and I don't think it will be as plain sailing for City as it's been. City have had 1 or 2 fights on their hands, but some of the time in the last 10 years, it hasn't been contested as well as it should have been. For example, United coming second, but hardly putting up a fight against City in one of City's title wins. So I do think that the league is just getting closer and closer and closer, and I think that what you might find is the season there's a gap between second and third, but I think next season you'll find less of a gap between first and third, and the following season maybe a less of a gap between first and fourth, and you might just see a closer top 4 as we progress.
Have we just forgotten about the fact that Manchester City is currently under one of the biggest investigations the Premier League has ever seen, and they could actually be
not winning the league on that. That's not going to be us. That's for all the ones. That's for you, who came second with 97 points, and Wahid in the Ole years. So you can give Ole a trophy.
But you're asking about the dynasty in years to come. I mean, this could literally finish them. But anyways, that's a fool's hope.
I think let's take that. I think from a footballing perspective, take that out of the equation. You're asking if, in all things being equal, I know they weren't equal historically. We've had like what happens, and all things being equal, I can't see like this sort of dominance being sustainable for forever. And I think that teams will catch up, and I think teams will develop and find ways of stopping Man City. And you look at, I think the big thing is that the big 4, like United, Liverpool, Arsenal, have found ways of stopping City and beating them. And it will be more along the lines of how do the likes of Aston Villa, Leeds, and Leicester stop City from putting 6 by them every week. That's where City win the league, because United, Spurs, we've all beaten them, and there is ways of beating City. They're not an insurmountable challenge. It's just the way that they absolutely steamroll the small clubs is where they really win the league.
Poor Southampton. And then they had the goal for Kevin De Bruyne to come back and say, no, they only just need a striker. They're a really good side. I'm like, dude, Jack Grealish literally chipped the ball over your defenders for that guy to overhead it.
Jack Grealish has been unreal the last month, and I
say
just
sorry,
Wahid.
I need to say
sorry because
what did you call him? Love Island something.
Second to none, and he has been so impressive these last few weeks. Like, if there's one boy I need to go and apologize to, it's Jack Grealish. You might not understand what I'm saying because he's down there, but anyway, I need to apologize to that kid.
We've taken him off fraud watch, and Sancho is still on, but that's okay.
Sancho is not as bad as you'll believe him to be. He's actually I think he's just not the type of player who people expect, what people expect. He's not a winger. He's like a playmaking forward in a wide position. And I think once you accept that, I think that you'll see a different side to Jadon Sancho. And I have been putting him on forward watch, but I've been seeing a different side to him since he's been reintegrated into the team.
But that's like a glorified Shinji Kagawa.
Yeah.
Yo, okay.
That's what we got from Dortmund, apparently.
Look, okay. Let's close it out. Thank you very much, guys. So this weekend, new manager bounce Leicester, Dean Smith. You can do the thing. Dean, before we go, was that a penalty?
Brighton should have won that game 5-2. Like, those both of those handballs are not handballs, right? Even watching it, I was like, come on, guys. Penalty, it's 100% a penalty. So, like, Brighton should have won that game. I'm 100% with them why they are irritated. Do I care? Absolutely not. I don't give a damn.
Stolen 3 points.
I take it all day, every day, bro. Honestly,
okay.
I don't care.
Like, they give out apologies, but you take 3 points. Okay, cool. Hopefully, we don't get a lot of that drama next week. But yeah, so enjoy the week, everybody. Enjoy the football. This title race, top 4 race for Europe, relegation race is heating up. enjoy it. And yeah, to all those who beat Everton, to all those who steal points at Brighton, have a great day. Jean, thank you very much for joining. Really enjoy having you on. Outside of that, goodbye and le sale kakahiso.